And good morning, everybody. This is the sixth episode of Clutter Talk Live, and I have the lovely Elaine McKinlay about to join me shortly. So, is she coming in? Hello, Elaine.
Hi
Um,
there.
I've got a weird message coming up on Zoom at the moment with me saying you can release your video order here. What on earth does that mean? I've no idea. Right. Anyway, here we are. I'm going to try and sort of sit forward so my sound. We're having, and for all the viewers out there, we're having a few audio. I think it might be a Zoom thing or a connection thing happening at the moment. But so we'll try and speak a bit slower and straight into the microphone and see how it goes. I'm quite excited about the show this morning, Elaine. We've got a super
Uh-huh.
guest coming on shortly called Jo Cooke, who is a specialist in hoarding and runs an organisation called Hoarding Disorders UK. And she'll be
Yeah.
able to share some of her experience and wisdom. One question I'm particularly keen on knowing is what is the difference between clutter and hoarding? Like where does it stop? Where does it start? And yeah, so I'm quite excited about that. But first off, Elaine, how has your week been?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, it's been good on the whole. But obviously, yesterday here in Scotland, we were told we're going back into lockdown here in Glasgow. So that's not so good. I had a few anxious calls yesterday for people who are slightly worried about going back into lockdown. And I think this is something that we as professional organisers need to be mindful of, that people are becoming anxious again with this yet another change. Um, so just a reassuring chat went on quite a lot yesterday, just saying that, I'm still here, and as part of our service, we are a support service. So if anybody is in desperate need, we can come, and be with you to help you for your mental health. So it's just really reassuring people that we are still working, either virtually or in-house if need be. So yeah, I think I have a bit mixed feelings. We're in the gloomy parts of winter. Um, we thought we were coming out of it, or things were getting better, and then that's us put back into lockdown again. But looking on the brighter side, if we do this now, then maybe we can mix at Christmas. So that's really a positive, I think, for us. So we have to think of that more than the sort of maybe more depressing way of looking at that we're going to be sitting in for another few weeks. But I think that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Actually, that's a really good point because we had a question from Elsa in Scotland last week, and she was asking, well, how how do we work with this hibernating nesting instinct, and how do we counteract that when we know we've still got stuff to do, but how do we keep ourselves going when really we just want to hibernate? And in Scotland, we say curry down, and how do we do that? Do you have any sort of top tips, Elaine, for how
Yeah,
we
I
can
think
work
with
with this?
yeah, I think with anybody that I speak to who is feeling that way, I think one of our main topics is to try to set a routine, a daily routine. That way you are maybe rising at the same time of the day. You've got a few little projects that you can focus on, because quite easily we can be distracted by just sitting in front of the television, or get distracted in a book or something like that. So I think by setting ourselves you know a routine, then it's slightly easier. It's like going to work, if you like. You would normally get up at the same time, you would travel, you would do your work, you would come home. So obviously we don't want it as strict as that, but what we want it.
Oh, Elaine has stopped. Come back, Elaine, come back.
I'm here. Oh,
Told you, I
sorry.
think YouTube's struggling.
Yeah. Right. Okay. The weather here in Glasgow at the moment is terrible. So it's the only way that I can describe it. It is horrible. So if I disappear, I will come back, I'm sure. Just
You,
chat.
you always do. Do you know what I mean, Elaine? Like a bad smell.
You're a terrible girl. You're a terrible girl. Anyway, how has your week been, Zem?
Oh, it's been all right. I'm just trying to remember now.
What
What's
have you
been
been up to?
happening? Oh, did you get your shower fixed?
No. That,
Ah,
that's a problem that obviously in lockdown as well, or in this situation where all the tradesmen are so busy. So, I usually have a team of people behind me, but they are so behind with all their jobs that, they're struggling. They are struggling. They have got so many jobs on. So, no, I don't have my shower fixed. So, yes, I am improvising at the moment for having a shower. So that's quite good fun. But I'm sure it will be fixed soon. But there are a lot of people in a lot worse situations from me. So I just go, well, I just have to go with the flow.
yeah. No, I'm asking because I'm embracing the country bumpkin at the moment. So I'm staying in this little sort of cabin at the moment, and I attached a water butt from the roof. So I had a flannel wash this morning in leaf filtered water on the decking. So
All right. Okay.
so it's
But
I don't have a shower. Well, I mean I do in the cottage, but not in the cabin. And so yeah, so that was why I was asking. Why I was asking. It might develop. We might get like a solar actioned one at some point. But it's very refreshing.
yeah, I mean, you just have to adapt. And I think that's something that we are all learning through lockdown, that sometimes we just have to adapt, and take on the challenge of dealing with something that normally we would click our fingers and it would be sorted. So I think poor Clara, who's not with us today because she's dealing with a lot of family support there. She's getting her mum ready for lockdown, etc. So Clara's off with dealing with the kids and that today. But things like that, I think Clara's waiting for a cooker to get put in. So I think we're all in the same boat, although at least I can eat.
So we should say greetings to Clara and hope the day goes well for you. And so that's Clara of Joy of Space, who will be joining us next week. And I think I don't know where everyone's seeing it on the screen, but that way we've got Elaine of Clear Mountain, who's your key motivator, motivational human being, and we're going to be joined shortly by Joe Cooke of Hoarding Disorders UK. And we've got a couple of really exciting announcements as well. Some of you may remember Jane Zangreis, who was on our show a couple of weeks ago and spoke so eloquently about Feng Shui and the I Ching, and she set up an online shop called Zero Waste and zero waste products. Elaine, do you want to say what she's giving to our subscribers?
She is giving
And
a
I'll share her
discount.
screen whilst you do that.
Okie dokie. She is giving a discount offer to anyone who subscribes to our YouTube channel. So it's worth subscribing. So please remember to subscribe because it makes us more visible. But also just to encourage people to look at what they're buying and that they're using sort of environmentally friendly products. So this is her website coming up, I think, and she's got a little store on her website, and she's putting up a few different things that she is producing and able to sell. So if you are interested in anything like that, I would pop along to her website, and also to subscribe to us and use the discount voucher that she excuse me, is so kindly giving to us. So good luck with your new venture, Jane, because there we are. That's a professional organizer who is not only organizing in people's homes, but has ventured out to looking at how we can take zero waste, a community of zero waste. So that's really, really good. So yeah.
I'm really excited. She showed us on the show 2 weeks ago her loofah
Yeah.
that she uses for washing up and stuff like that. So you can get that for £3.50. And she also does a free gift wrapping service, which I think is brilliant. So yeah, do check out the store and mention that you're a Clutter Chat subscriber, and you'll get your 10% discount. Brilliant.
That was good. Yeah.
And
Lovely.
what other announcements do we have, Elaine?
So we are announcing this week that our course Moving from Chaos to Calm
Bringing it up on screen, bringing it up.
It's okay. At the University of Strathclyde's Lifelong Learning Centre is back up online. If you're looking to register for that, there is limited places for the next session. we have reduced the numbers of people joining us so that we can have it more interactive and a much more chatty and just a more interactive sessions, because normally when we are teaching or tutoring face-to-face, there's a good lot of chat, but it's slightly difficult when you're on Zoom. So we've reduced the numbers down so that we can all share with each other how we're feeling, etc. So Zem's just brought it up. So it's at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, but it is online, so you can get it wherever you live. If you just pop along to the website, and our course is Moving from Chaos to Calm. And there's Dr. Zem is on it doing a special session, and Clara Moore will be on it as well, coming in to do some interesting information on the KonMari. And I'll be hosting it for the January session. So again, places are limited. So if you'd like to join us, we would love to see you, but you need to be quick.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So that's exciting. So that's starting in the new year, and previous students have found it sort of very motivational, and it's just good to have something actually over the length of 6 weeks, isn't it? It gives you kind of a good run up and a good way to kind of get your thoughts and heads and around it. And the students also found the support that they got from each other, I think, quite motivational, and just being in that shared space of understanding, and that, you know, many people struggle with this, and I think that's one of the key things, isn't it, to take home from that, Elaine?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, quite a few people have come on or come to the course or come online to the course and suddenly gone, oh my goodness, I thought I was the only person dealing with this, and now I feel so much more relaxed in the fact that there is help out there, but also there are other people who are experiencing the same sort of thing as myself. So if you are thinking about it, I would encourage you to, there's a little challenge, take that little challenge, you know, come on the course and join us once a week for 6 weeks, you know.
Brilliant. Yeah, and we'll put the I'll in the description to this movie when it goes on, I'll put the links to these courses and to the website so people can access them. And just to encourage viewers, if you have any questions, please message us in on the YouTube channel now. Elaine will be keeping an eye on it, as Em says, and I'll try as well whilst I'm sort of organising everything. But we'd love to have your questions. So shortly we're going to bring in Jo Cooke, and I'm just sort of so excited actually. She's doing great work at the moment down in somewhere in the south of England. Is it Berkshire? I may have made that up. Anyway, we will find out. And she's also started running online courses for professionals and for those concerned concerned about people who have strong hoarding habits. So we'll learn a lot from her, and she's published a book. So I am going to let her in from the waiting room, because there's one question that came up from a local here where I am at the moment, which is, how do you cope with other people's clutter, particularly when it's affecting your own health, equilibrium, and sense of well-being? So if you live around someone who has a heck of a lot of stuff and it's affecting you, how do you manage that? How do you cope with yourself? So I think these are some really interesting topics that we're going to cover now, as well as issues about safety, fire safety, health, accidents and falls. We'll cover that as well. So I'm going to welcome Jo into our little space. Let's see what happens.
Here she comes.
Jo!
Morning!
Welcome!
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? How's everyone?
We're not bad.
Yeah.
We're not bad. Elaine's the weather's miserable in Scotland, Glasgow, and we were just saying that it's actually kind of, I think, increasing maybe the anxiety and loneliness of clients who are sort of struggling with the shorter days and the weather, and also going back down into lockdown. It's just how you keep up the resilience of sort of coping with that, and just saying, well, we are still here, but we can't do as much as we could, but we're not going anywhere. So we were just talking a bit about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so true. I always say, well, we've got 21st of December, then we've had our shortest day, so not long to go. I always find that helpful. Yeah.
Oh, good. You've got a cup of tea being brought.
I have.
Hey!
Hi.
Definitely need good crew support. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. That's the great thing about this Zoom, we're all trying to be all professional and all that, but life is going on in the background. I mean, I can hear my husband as well making a cup of tea, come down from the office as well, and often he pops his head in and says, fancy a cup of tea, and I'm thinking, remember on a Wednesday not to come in.
It's very difficult to train the family, isn't it?
Well, I have a cat called Jimmy that quite regularly joins in on the Zoom meetings. You can't tell a cat what to do.
So, Jo, how did you get into your specialism of hoarding?
Well, my father was Polish. He grew up during the war. He remembers being hungry. He remembers his parents sacrificing their food to give to him. And it meant while growing up, he hated any kind of waste. And my mother sort of managed him while he was alive, but he kept every single diary, he kept every single pair of desert boots. I'm still going through all his work papers. And he was also, so he remembers sense of deprivation, and I'm not just talking physical deprivation. And I think his behavior, we grew up with the luxury of space, but it did mean that when he died, it took me 4 months to clear the family home out, because he kept he hoarded his timeline as well. He had a real sense of pride in his job. And at the time I was working for the Department of Education, and the chance of voluntary redundancy came up. And as I navigated the way through emptying out the house and decanting it and dealing with my 4 brothers and sisters and dealing with probate, I thought, actually, I'm quite good at dealing with stuff, and I'm quite good at dealing with people. And that's when I sort of set my own decluttering business up. And then from there,
what was your dad's job, Jo?
He was an engineer. He was a civil engineer. So
viewers, this has been a leitmotif that's been running through our conversations about engineers. Quite a few of us have encountered engineers as clients, and engineers who really struggle with, in fact, now talking about it again, more and more people are coming into my head, engineers who struggle. Definitely. And why do you think that could be, Jo?
It's because I think they see the potential in absolutely anything. I can make this, I can create this, I can salvage. Now I need to keep that old vacuum cleaner, because actually look how far we've come with this vacuum cleaner. I need to compare what's happened in science and technology. So they have a real zest and thirst for life and can see the uniqueness and potential in absolutely everything. And I can invent this, and I can create this and fix this and tinker around. I have one client, he said, no, this isn't my living room, this is my workshop, and he lit it. And at one client, we unearthed a brand new cement mixer in his dining room because he could, anything sentimental, I don't need that, but if it's got a plug on it, and oh no, you can't have that, let me just keep the plug. Remember the days when we used to be able to cut plugs off, and buy kettles without plugs, and people are still saving plugs. It's the way that the mind operates in terms of the potential and the uniqueness in the items that they store.
Would you agree with that, Elaine?
I think I would. Yes, I would agree. I could think of a few clients that I have as well who, have jobs similar to that, or actually are engineers or were engineers. And I do think there is always that, as you have explained there, Jo, the thought of, I can always do something with this item or whatever. And that's fantastic. And it's I think for us, it's trying to latch on to that, but to say, you can do something fantastic with your home as well as these things, or reduce the amount of things that are in your home so you can see the things you want to keep. I think there's a balance, and that's what I was going to ask you about. Do you ever come across people who say, oh, I'm not a hoarder, I'm a collector?
Oh, definitely.
You ever come across that? Yeah.
Oh, and most of the time, because actually it's not helped by the horrible hoarding programs that we see on the television, because they don't connect themselves with those people, and they don't know, I'm not a hoarder. I'm hoardacious, actually, and I really love that word, hoardacious.
I love that word. I've never come across it. Hoardacious.
Yes,
love
hoardacious.
it.
Yes, I know. So it's much easier to say I'm hoardacious. It kind of, you could say that with pride. And not only engineers, I work with a lot of teachers. Again, it's seeing the potential, that sort of Blue Peter mentality. I can use that. It's not just a Brillo pad. A Brillo pad isn't just something for scouring, cleaning saucepans with. It's silver hair. I could use it as silver hair. And so again, a wooden spoon isn't just a wooden spoon for stirring our casserole. It's a smiley face, and you can use it in a game, and you can use it as a drumstick. So yes, there are certain traits with people that have these hoarding behaviors, but we don't like the word hoarder because of the connotations, and there's so much stigma attached to it.
I think often I try to differentiate it by saying, well, a collector maybe collects one type of thing, and someone who has tendencies to hoard collects many different types of things.
Yes.
And and if we sort of investigate or look into what this particular person may be storing, then we could say, well, oh yes, you've got a great collection of, let's think, Star Wars things, but you also have 5, 6, 7 collections of other things. So where do we draw the line? Do you ever come across that? Where do we draw the line between collecting and then getting it into a state of, having too much stuff around you?
I know. I think when I try to describe the difference between a collection and a hoard, generally, and we are encouraged as children, we're encouraged to collect, from the items that we get on comics to cards and Barbie dolls and things like that. And I think generally someone who is a collector manages, they curate their collection, they display their items with pride and want to show their items off. Whereas someone with hoarding behaviors, the difference is, they don't know when enough is enough, and the beliefs and feelings they have about their items are attached. There's a lot of shame and guilt associated with it. I think that tends to be the difference.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's the balance of, I think it is about, yes, sharing and being proud of your collection and having the confidence to share it with others, be it your family, neighbours, friends. And when I started my work in Clutter years ago and set up the group Clutter Chat, I was waiting for this opportunity to put on an art exhibition. My background's in art, and there's a load of artists who do really amazing things, from assemblage and creating art out of what other people would perceive as clutter or rubbish or trash. And we were so lucky, in a couple of years ago at the Gallery of Modern Art in Glasgow, one of the artists wasn't able to exhibit her work. And so she gave the space for the duration of this 3 months to the community, and community groups were allowed to book in a space. So Clutter Chat booked in a space for a day, and we put on this exhibition called Clutter Works. And honestly, the members never worked so hard. We had 6 or 7 different art pieces, one of the odd sock tree. We had a volcano of sort of cascading magazines down the floor. We had pins from the back of your cupboard, and we had visitors from Iceland coming and discovering their lost sock on the sock tree. People were allowed to take things from the bookshelf, and so the idea was that nothing was to go back home with the members. It all had to go to to the charity bookshop or into the recycling, and it was fantastic. But for me, it was that transformation, that sense of pride, and going, that audaciousness, and going, yes. And the Gallery of Modern Art in Glasgow is wonderful because it's got these wonderful big windows. It let the light in. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you could see everything from every angle. And for me, I'm very much wanting to sort of punch shame in the face every time I see it, because it is really not helpful, and really kind of grinds people down. So I think you've sort of hit the nail on the head there with what is the difference between a hoard and a collection, and it's your relationship with it. It's whether you're proud of it or whether you can share it and show it off in a it is I think that's
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you, Zem. Yeah. And I think some people are more likely to let go if they know that their items are going to be given a new lease of life somewhere else, and treasured and loved by someone else. But you've really got to find a really good reason for letting go before you do that, because otherwise, actually, no, I'm going to hang on to it because I feel responsible. So it's having those outlets. I had one chap, and we talk about sock trees. We had a whole laundry basket of odd socks. I said, no, I'm not going to let these until I pair them up. I thought, So, and after 2 years, he admitted defeat. He said, I'm never going to pair these socks up. I'm going to give them to you because I know that you're going to make sure that it goes towards stuffing. So as long as he knows where's the destination of my item and what's going to end up with it, and that's the difference between someone letting go and someone keeping, because they have that real sense of responsibility.
I've just had a question from Chrissy here, and she would like to ask Jo, how do you get recognition for help for this disorder? Because she says she believes that many people are just battling on without any support, and it impacts on their mental health. And I think that's something that comes up quite a lot for us when we go into people who say, I think I've got this, but I actually don't know where to go or how to get support. So, I mean, obviously it might be slightly different in Scotland and England, but generally, what do you think about that?
I think there are a few avenues to go down. Firstly, there is looking at hoarding at a support group as a place for someone. There are many. Hoarding is recognised as a mental health disorder, but alongside hoarding, you have people that just struggle with clutter, and I think it's just supporting people with clutter. And there are support groups to go, but at the same time, you could go and see a professional. And the hoarding world is a small one, and we all know each other, and we all share out new research and resources with each other. And my friend and colleague Cherry Rudge, who I'm sure you both know, devised the hoarding icebreaker form.
Jo, I'm going to share it because it's on your website.
Yeah.
I know it's under resources, isn't it?
There we go. Icebreaker.
Here we go.
Well done. She's good.
Yeah, she is good.
Thank you.
I couldn't do that.
And she knows it.
So it's a form. It's packed with really useful information, and you can download it and print it off and keep a copy and take a copy to your GP. Now, because hoarding is because we're still learning about how to deal with hoarding and clutter, the medical professions are still learning about it. So actually, there was an example of one is I had someone who, she'd seen this form, she'd had 2 bereavements and a divorce all within a year of each other, and how it left her sort of traumatized, and she wasn't able to grieve for those 3 life situations. So she took this form to her doctor, and the doctor said, well, he said, and I'm happy to share her name, he said, Molly, I don't know enough about hoarding and why you filled your house up in response to these events, but I do know about you, but give me some time to research it and come back in 2 weeks' time. So on the form, there's lots of really useful researches. And he recognised that she'd suffered from trauma, and what he thought would be best for her was having some EMDR. Have you heard of the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing? So that was the start of Molly getting help for herself, as well as joining the support group, as well as buddying up with a clutter buddy. And I think that can go a really long way, just having someone to vocalize your intentions. Just like, well, what I'm going to try and do this week is I'm going to sort that part of my dining room table out, because I want to be able to clear a space to put my Christmas tree up this year. So by having those little targets and vocalizing them, that can go a long way to reclaiming space.
I think that's excellent advice, Jo, and it really resonates with what I've heard over the past few years. The form, everybody, is fantastic. So please do go to the Hoarding Disorders UK website and do have a look at it, and do take it along to your doctors if you think it's also a very good kind of learning tool. And also, I totally agree. That's why amongst the Clutter Chat members, which is the peer-to-peer support group, but it's what I've recently come up with the phrase sort of accelerated empathy, which Elaine and I were talking about just now about the Strathclyde course. When you are with people who suffer similarly, it's accelerated empathy. It's wonderful. Yes, I set up the group, but honestly, I sit there. And the amount of change and understanding that happens so quickly, it's incredible. And people go, it's just so good that I'm not alone. And it's amazing how quickly changes can take place just by sitting in that environment with empathetic people who really have gone through and understand as well what it's like to go through those problems. And one of the key recommendations for clutter chatters is getting a buddy. So they will select friends within the group and support each other, and give someone a phone call, like on a Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday, I am going to organise my table. Could somebody just give me a call at the beginning or at the end? Or they'll put a little message in the WhatsApp group going, done it, or I'm about to do this. If people could just, help me, stick me down to doing this job. And those are two very important things. But you and I have talked before about it takes a village basically to work this out. From your perspective, and I'm interested as well in how you've started working with professionals and other people who encounter audacious individuals and the challenges that come with that. Could you maybe speak about how you began this work?
Yes, I think it. In fact, it goes back to going to San Francisco 2 years ago. There's a hoarding conference in San Francisco. I mean, I know we've had one in Edinburgh, but they've been having hoarding conferences for over 17 years. So I don't go on holiday. I'm just really geeky and go on hoarding conferences. And they had a seminar out there about it takes a village, and we thought, well, yes, it does take a village, and we need to look at who is in our village. It doesn't just take one individual to solve it. It's like, it's like, well, it's everyone's concern. It's fire services concern, it's mental health concern, it's housing's concern, it's the neighbour's concern, it's the person with the hoarding behaviours right in the middle. It's their concern too. So being able to work collaboratively together to support what can be really complex situation, it is the way to making sure that person has that ongoing support, and I'm absolutely delighted that we've got people, from the post office wanting training, occupational therapists in the NHS. People are really wanting to understand it, and recognise it's not about, they're recognising that hoarding is not a lifestyle choice, and it's very much an anxiety-based disorder. And I think, I know that you've talked about the pandemic, we are living in anxious times. And in response to that, sometimes what we do is we fill up our home. We need it just in case. So I think it's recognizing that people's mental health can be impacted in all sorts of ways. And hoarding might be one of those go-to behaviors that people might go back to going, I need to feel safe, and I need my nest around me. So we always come from the point of view of safety.
And I think, as you say, like, it's a village and we're trying to work it out, and none of us has all the solutions. So you mentioned Cherry Rudge, who runs the wonderful Rainbow Red group and organisation, and we're all members of APDO as well, the Association of Professional Declutterers and Organisers. And then in Scotland, we've got Linda Fay of Life-Pod. So and we're all sort of trying to help figure this out. So wherever you are in the UK, it'll still be a bit of a postcode lottery. It will still be a little bit specific, but the village is aware of it, and we're trying to work it out through different solutions. And Joe, could you maybe talk a bit about the courses that you're putting on as well to help, because anybody in the UK can attend these, can't they?
Yes, they can. Yes, and when we talk, and I'll just sort of go back quickly about that hoarding world.
Please
do. The world is a small one, and we all know each other. And we've also got the great Heather Matuozzo from Clouds End. So we talk regularly and go, oh, have you heard about this piece of research happening here? Have you contributed to it? Have you heard about attachment theories? Have you heard about, the good work in Australia that Jan Malcom is doing from Stuffology? And we're looking at acceptance commitment as a therapy. So there's all these exciting things happening. So part of what I do as well is offer training out to anyone, and that includes people with hoarding behaviours themselves, people impacted by hoarding, as well as professionals, from people that doing from cleaners to professional organisers. We offer it out to the fire services, and as I mentioned, we've got housing and occupational therapists. We even had a British Airways air hostess come on it because she recognised that she had 2 people in her block of flats that had, hoarding behaviours, and she wanted to understand it, and she wanted to make sure that she wasn't doing more harm than good. And I think that's really important, that we don't rush in with our own agenda. Oh no, I can fix this. So yeah, I'm really proud of the training that we've developed.
I think that's a key point there that you've made there, Joe, about when people think, oh, I'll get a professional organizer in and they're going to fix this immediately. That's, it's about us explaining and using the language that it's not going to happen overnight, and that we need, to work in joint support with possibly your doctor, physio, anything, like that. And but we are part of that team who will give you the support, maybe, the physical help to get the stuff out, as well as the motivational help, or, in conjunction with the other agencies. And I think it was interesting you talked about the fire service as well, because we were talking about, last week we were talking about the sort of the couriering in, as we call it here in Glasgow, but or Scotland, but everybody wants to get snuggled in, before when it's the darker nights and that. And the worry that worries me is people who possibly, as you said, we talked about earlier, is smoking or using candles or things like that. They could set the place on fire very, very quickly. And the other day we were talking about, in Scotland, they're going to bring in a new law about having hardwired alarms in. But do you think there's, is there anything you could give us advice-wise, fire-wise, or working with the fire service or anything like that?
Yeah. I love working with the fire services because they want to understand it too. And I think where it works really, really well, and I know this happens, it's not just in England, is you can do joint safe and well visits. So a safe and well visit will be around looking at the safety and highlighting, perhaps we need to have another smoke alarm here, and making sure that we've got exits, and and they're really informative. I went on there's lots of free training. It's like, make sure that you don't put your dryer on overnight. And what I'd recommend is, actually, if you are a smoker, sometimes they offer out bedspreads and nightwear. They can.
That's amazing, Joe. I've never heard of that. So that's a joint safe and well visit.
Yes, joint safe and well visit.
Okay.
So the fire services will come and go, well, actually, we recommend, you know, because the level of clutter you have in your home, we recommend, you know, putting an additional smoke alarm in, and, you know, let's try and make the stairs clear, because you can imagine if there was a fire, we wouldn't be able to get you out. So they highlight and, you know, try and keep the doors. So they'll come up with a little bit of a plan, but always come from the point of view of safety and make recommendations. Because I think sometimes we forget, don't we? And I think there's many people have sort of daisy chains of extension needs that we shouldn't have. So, and we charge our phone overnight, you know, and they always recommend sleeping with the door shut. Well, I didn't think about that. So yes, I think there's definitely some work to be had in working closely with your fire services.
I've just pulled up your local fire service Safe and Well visit screen, and it's lovely. I'm just going to share it with viewers a little bit.
Yeah. And I know that the fire services are really keen. I know there's some really good work happening in Birmingham with Heather from Clouds End and the fire services. You know, they really want to understand it, and they want to be part of that village. So I know that there are a lot of volunteers wanting to help out. But yes, this is a really useful form, and they don't, you know, they come from the point of view of safety and not judgment.
I think
so this is Hampshire.
Yeah, that's Hampshire.
I was going to say this is Hampshire, and if you live in Hampshire, they will do a free custom-made information pack. They can install and check existing smoke alarms. They can issue fire retardant bedding, furniture throws, and nightwear where needed, and can also refer to other services for professional assessment. So that's brilliant, isn't it? Good on Hampshire.
Yeah, they're good.
I think we were in talks with the fire service maybe a year or so ago about sort of trying to pull something like this together in Scotland, and I think, I'm not sure how far they've progressed with that. I think their problem that they felt was that they wanted to know how to use a language when they went in to see people, to not stress people out by saying, you know, this is a dangerous area. And they were looking to work with us as professionals to find out how that might happen, or would we go in with them, you know, or would they work with a joint support, again, these joint support meetings, you know. So it's, I don't know, we need to pick that up a wee bit more, I think, in Scotland, and see how far they've got with planning that out. But definitely, I think when I go in and I see situations, you know, we were talking about this last week about what is the quickest exit out of this house, and is it clear? Because sometimes it is not clear, you know, and these are really, really good points that, you know, even people who are watching maybe today and think, okay, I do have a lot of stuff, but actually, can I get out of this house quickly today? You know, and maybe if that's a wee challenge that you take on even over the next couple of days, to make sure that you can get out your home safely, you know, that's something good that would come out of today.
Yeah, good.
And I think that's the concern. So I've worked with the fire service before and produced a small video for them as a training video that they could use with their staff to encourage that kind of language. How do we approach? So there's definitely this concern, and working with so many professionals who are just actually overwhelmed with the situations. So from environmental health officers, I had a very, very long phone call from one who's like, we don't have the right tools currently in Scotland to deal with it. We can do a house cleanse, an eviction. And it's like addressing, it's trying to cut butter with a sledgehammer. And these professionals realise that this is not the right tools, and their hearts are breaking at the same time. And so that's something that I'm hearing a lot. And so we've spoken about it takes a village to help, and is the feeling that we really do think that the village is starting to kind of address this and work together. And what would be your top tips, Jo, for if you are one of those concerned, if you are a family member who's concerned about a hordacious relative or a hordacious neighbour, or you have someone with really strong hoarding tendencies you're a social worker, and what are your top tips for these people who are directly affected, for their own also mental health and well-being, in order to cope with it?
Well, again, it's that sharing and caring and making sure that you don't feel alone or responsible. I did some training yesterday with a housing group, and they felt very much responsible for it. And I've said, well, actually, what we need is, again, that person-centered collaborative approach where you are sharing out what can be a very complex long-term situation. So coming together and coordinating activity, or coordinating a response, or coordinating support with a person with the hoarding behaviors in the middle of that, looking at how, it's empowering the person with the hoarding behaviors. It's not doing it with them. And that can go a long way. But pulling in those people that want to help, looking at who is in my village. And actually, when you look closely at it, there are it can be all sorts of different avenues. It could be the church, it could be age concern. The support might be the neighbor next door as that key trusted person. What does help look like? And asking, how can we help you, person with the hoarding behaviors, and drawing on that.
So in this time when we can't have anybody else into our homes, is there any key things that you could say to people who, what's the type of thing that you would say when you go into someone's home? What are your top tips for that?
Okay.
If nobody can come in just now, how would they deal with it themselves just now?
Yes, So I think if there is a need for someone to address, they want to address their home, but someone can't come in, it's like, well, what can I do while I am locked in lockdown? Well, yes, I'm going to, and I think from the practical point of view of labeling things up, yes, that I would like to go to charity. Yes, that's destined for recycling. Because I think we have a propensity to churn. Have you heard that expression, churn? We'd always churning. Actually, you put something in a bag, and then you look at it again and think, well, hang on a minute. No, I want to keep that. But it's like, so if you label up a bag and go to charity and put the date on November 2020, then you've identified that is going to go to the charity shop for when the charity shops are open. And I always get people to say, put it in the boot of your car, because otherwise there's a temptation to go through it again. And talk to people about how they can help you. You might be stuck in your home, but there might be, make arrangements. There's all sorts of arrangements that you can make with local councils. If there is more stuff to be recycled, you can make those arrangements. So you have to think, it's thinking outside of the box all of the time, being creative.
So we had a very practical question that came in, which is about putting away summer clothes and not being able to fit them into the Ziploc bags. Like there's this this was from Chrissy, I think, but this sort of, she always thinks that she can get in more than she can. Elaine, do you have any solutions to that? I confession, I don't really have enough stuff to put into storage, but Elaine, do you have any experience with these Ziploc bags?
I do think that the key is to reduce the amount of stuff rather than put it away. So that would be the first thing. I would say, really honestly, if you think you're going to put it away and not look at it, do you really want it? Do you really need it? So that I would be asking, that first question would be that. Is there some stuff I can let go of first? Secondly, I have used the vacuum bags, but the problem with the vacuum bags are that if you don't buy a quality bag, they do leak and they do then expand again. So the problem does come back. So I'm not keen on the bags, the vacuum bags, but if you are going to have to use them, I'm afraid you have to really spend money on the really kind of expensive ones rather than the slightly cheaper ones. Okay, so that might be the first thing. But I think the key here is to make sure that you don't have too much stuff that you're going to put away, because it's the out of sight, out of mind type thing. Yeah. Well, that's just delaying the problem till the summer, till you take the next lot out, for me. So what I do is I reduce everything down, and then I know that I've got this amount of stuff, and there's maybe a small drawer of stuff that's maybe for the summer that can go into a drawer that's fine, and the rest of the stuff I don't need, and can go to charity or go to textile recycling or whatever. So that's how I would handle it. I don't think storing and putting away, I mean, I do store and put away children's clothes for people, because I do think that it's a great way of recycling things for the rest of your children. And in that case, sometimes what I do is I bag them up and then put them into plastic boxes with air freshener type, the things you put in the tumble dryer, the sheets, that pop them in between the layers of the clothes. And then I bag them up, put them into plastic boxes, clear plastic boxes with a lid that's clipped, and label it of the age of the children. So I would really only do it for that. If it's an adult, then I would be saying, okay, what are the key things you want to keep for summer? But the rest of the stuff, are you happy to let them go? So that would be my top tip.
Yeah.
You're nodding, Joe, in agreement.
I just sort of say label. And actually, when you and group things together, whereas I don't really like Marie Kondo, one of the things that she does very well, so take top tips, is like for like. I think that works really well. I think, well, okay, well, I've got 8 Panama hats, or how many, or 8, 12 navy blue jumpers. Now, which, and I think, and then that helps you appraise and assess your stash, so to speak, and it helps you.
Yeah.
But
Now,
label.
Now, Joe, you've got the republication of your book coming up next year with the new chapter.
Yes.
So I wonder, are there any sort of top stories in that book, or a top story you want to share? Because I love stories. Is there a story about a transformation or something that you've encountered that you can share with viewers?
Goodness me. Have I got a story? I think sometimes the story is in the motivation. And I think sometimes, and I always say to people, it's actually looking through, it's sort of untangling things. I think sometimes what can sort of present as a hoard isn't necessarily a hoard. So you're looking past the stuff and looking at the person. And sometimes those transformations can be great. And I think sometimes it's around that person. And I love that expression of exhilarated empathy. I think there's so much, it has that ripple effect. Well, that person, he's managed to get things back on track. I want to do the same. And I think we talk about social isolation, we talk about a village, and we talk about empathy, but I also think we talk a lot about the importance of connection, and that sense that people, they need to feel connected with their village. And sometimes it's not around the acquiring that they're doing, it's around wanting that conversation with the shopkeeper. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So in the book, I want to talk more about change and what that looks like, and look at exploring our own beliefs and values, and how actually we ourselves, not only empowering ourselves, we can reframe the day. We can reframe how we think about things. I just think there's a lot of work around that. And actually, rather than pushing the pain away, working through the pain, and actually, what's the worst thing that can happen by letting things go? That's what
it's interesting, because this week I worked with a client, and her 3 rooms of her house were, there was no definition in any room of her house. Everything was in the same, in every place in the house. So what we did was defined areas. Yeah. So the living room came back to a living room, and the dining room came back to a dining room, and what that does for people, it gives them that great sense of, oh gosh, I've got a sense of achievement, but also I can do it, and I have a place to relax if I just put my mind to it. So I think that's another good way of, sometimes I tackle that with, this room is maybe full of things that you have hoarded, but also let's get it back to what it should be, so that you can relax in it, and then then you can collect the other things if you want to. But it's about mental well-being, health, well-being, everything coming into, like I like to say, into line, you know, and it just takes, sometimes it just takes one little thing to say, this area is now clear. Oh, wow, I've done this. So I can actually do the rest now.
Yeah, exactly. And I see our job as, you know, when you've got a ball of wool that's really badly knotted up, our job is just to tease out that first knot for them to be able to see it. Actually making our homes work. And you mentioned, Elaine, about, you know, defining how your home can work for you, you know, putting definitions in for areas. And yes, and something's coming in, where does this live? Where does it live in my home?
And there's something that keeps us going, isn't there, with working with people, audacious people, and clutterholics. And I'm remembering a previous client of mine who was utterly audacious and wonderful. And unfortunately, he passed away this year. But whilst I was working with him, his son described his car as the Kinder transport of trash, because he felt so keenly about needing to rescue things.
Yes.
But he applied it to stuff. And he was also wonderful with children, FYI. But he had this, and it was when he had a grandchild that he realised he had to clear out his Kinder transport of trash for a Kinder, because the child needed to sit in it. It's wonderful. But he had this incredible collection of keyboards. And I'd worked with him, and he texted me and he said he'd put at least half a dozen of them. He'd built up the courage and took them to the small electricals recycling place at the dump. And he said for the first half hour, it was like he was grieving. It was overwhelming. And he said, but after that, he felt light. But pushing through what you just said, Joe, about sort of going through the sadness and through the emotion. And he messaged me just to say it was fine, actually. Yes, it didn't feel particularly good. I'm not saying it was a wonderful feeling going through it, but I did it. And it was just so wonderful. And bless him, he was very musical, and he wrote me a waltz, which is now the ringtone to my phone. So he's always, whenever anyone phones me, I have him in my world. And I think for viewers out there, there is this empathy that's established between us and clients is such a sort of cold word in a way, but between us and the people we work with. And the emotions do go both ways. And just to reassure people that there is no one's alone. There are people, whether they're messaging you or not, who are thinking about you and who are trying to use our creativity, our imagination, our compassion, our practical skills to build up this village, so that we are all held. So I wanted to say that, really.
That was lovely, then. Thank you for saying that.
It's true.
But I think you're right. I think for most people, it's the fear of how they will feel when they let go of something, and it's that anxiety bit beforehand. But if you have the courage to feel the bit that you're worried about feeling, this sounds a bit confusing, but do you know what I mean? You know where I'm going with this? If you have the courage to go through it, you can feel so much lighter at the end of it. And you know, and only people who have experienced that can actually say, I have been. And I have seen people like that who have been terrified about letting go of things, but eventually, once it has actually happened, say, oh my gosh, I don't know why I didn't do that earlier, because that was on my shoulders, and that has been on my shoulders for years. And now I feel so much lighter, and I know it's gone to a good home, or I know it's gone to the right place. And I just feel like a different person. And for us, or for me as a professional organizer, I love that feeling, seeing somebody who has felt that, you know, themselves. You know, and that's why I do this job, because it's not about money, it's not about anything like that, but it's about, as you say, forming the village and making sure we are here to support the right people at the right time.
Well, ladies, we're coming to the end of the show. 11 o'clock has just clicked in. So just to say, Jo Cooke, thank you ever so much for all your expertise and your thoughts and your kindness in coming onto the show. And to remind people about, if you're a subscriber or if you subscribe, then you can get 10% off Jane Rice's zero waste products, which we're all about encouraging, trying to use what we have. And also the Strathclyde course coming up in January. I'll put the links down in the description. And what else have I forgotten?
Next week, we've got Sarah McLeod, who's coming on, who is a fantastic person who repurposes all types of materials and things. And she came to our Clutter chat. Clutter Connections, that's right. To get help with distributing inherited items. So she's going to talk a little bit about that, but more importantly about how you can repurpose some of the stuff that you may have in your home. So a really good one to watch next week.
She's an artist, and she knits tights like together to make these amazing sculptures and bags. It's fantastic.
Yeah, sounds great.
Any last words, Jo?
No, I think conquer hoarding with kindness and curiosity as well goes a long way.
Love it.
Brilliant.
Conquering hoarding with kindness and curiosity.